Hey, this is Joe Hubbard from JoeHubbardBasedVideos.com coming at you today with another lesson. And this particular lesson is on the anatomy of the left hand. With that in mind, grab your base and let's get started. In order to develop a strong left hand stance, you need to place the fingers in a position for maximum reach and flexibility. We want to adopt a one finger per fret system, but when placed on the fingerboard, the fingers of the left hand do not fret entirely on the center of the fingertips. So if we take a closer look at this by adopting a one finger per fret system, and I put my fingers of the left hand onto the fingerboard, what you'll notice is the first finger frets on the left side of the fingertip. So what then happens with the second finger is it frets just to the left of center. So it's not quite center, because what's starting to occur is this fanning effect when I open my fingers in this way. The third finger is just off center to the right, and then the fourth finger is more to the right of the fingertip. So I want you to pay particularly close attention to the way this fanning effect occurs. A common problem when people try a one finger per fret and they're not successful is that they do this. So look at the way they change the angle there. You must open that out so you have this one finger per fret and you really start to adopt this proper spatial relationship between the fingers. Now stay with me. I want you to notice from adopting this one finger per fret stance is how the thumb and the second finger should be in alignment. Now your thumb should be behind the base. It shouldn't be hanging over the neck. This is bad. This is going to reduce the distance that your fingers can reach, and it's going to cramp up your hand. So what you want to do is get this back here, because what we're trying to develop is a technique that's going to allow for maximum efficiency, and it's going to allow for you to hear an idea and then translate that through your fingers with the least amount of resistance. And this is very, very important here. Okay? So by having this thumb and this second finger in alignment allows for a more equal balance across the left hand and creates a more solid left hand stance. This is going to help us to distribute the pressure evenly between the fingers of the left hand. I want you to also notice how this thumb acts as sort of a clamp securing the left hand stance. We don't want to squeeze the neck. This is not correct, but instead press onto the strings, maintaining a dynamic relaxation in your left hand. Remember, economy of movement and economy of energy is key here. Throwing the left hand fingers at the knuckle joints is essential, along with keeping your wrist as straight as possible. Listen, don't take my word for it. What I want you to do is do an exercise right now. I want you to bend your wrist, and I want you to try to make a really strong fist. You won't be able to do it, and it'll be really uncomfortable as well. If you keep your wrist straight, that's where you'll make a really strong fist. So this is just a key essential thing to get happening within your playing, because you want to maximize all the strength within your fingers. Remember as well that the real muscles that govern finger movement are in your forearm. So by bending that wrist, you're cutting off the power flow that goes from the muscles into your tendons through to the ligaments in your fingers, and then they attach to the bone. So this is very, very important to get together. Bending the wrist excessively is just going to end up aggravating the tendons, which could lead to long-term damage in your left hand. You also want to be fretting the notes just below the actual fret wire. So we're right here. This is where the actual fret is. Unbelievably, there's still many people that think the actual note is where the dot is on your fretboard. That's not true. Where the note is where the actual fret is. If you pulled these frets out, that's where the notes would be. So you need to understand how to fret that just below the actual fret wire. This is going to allow you to develop the proper spatial relationship between your fingers, create greater finger dexterity, and more importantly, develop a better tone on your instrument. A lot of tonal aspects are created by playing with really good technique. So also notice the space between my fingers here. See how those knuckles never touch each other. When you play a note with your second finger, I want you to keep your first finger down onto the fingerboard behind it. So if I'm playing this note here, finger 1 stays down on the fretboard. You don't want this sort of thing where the fingers are off the fretboard that way. Once I've fretted a note and I go to that second finger, the first finger always stays behind. The rule of thumb is any finger behind a fretted note stays down onto the fingerboard. This is of paramount importance because the minute that I'm doing this kind of stuff like this, it's causing all sorts of tension and it's reducing this economy of motion concept that I want to adhere to. Okay, so if I then go to fret the third finger, fingers 1 and 2 stay down behind 3. When the fourth finger's down, they're all down onto the fretboard. So this is very, very important. Now the fingers, if I'm actually playing, and let's say I play 1, 2, 3, and you can see here that finger 4 is off the fretboard. I don't want to keep that too far away. You know, I want to keep that maybe about a ½ an inch from the actual fretboard. This is very important. If you start raising that an inch or above, this is going to really cause a lot of tension. It's going to start to defeat the whole economy of motion principle. You know, the time that it takes for you to get used to adopting a stronger left-hand stance, you'll begin to feel stronger, more flexible, and more relaxed as all the fingers will start to learn to support one another, acting as one interdependent unit. This will maximize the control of the left hand, enabling you to play with greater ease. In order to familiarize yourself with this left hand stance, especially if this is new for you, make sure that you practice this drill. This is a very good drill to just go through and just get a feel, because it helps us to start to develop the understanding of sensitivity and feeling that sensitivity in regard to playing your instrument. This is very important. What I want you to do is place your hand in the correct position on the fingerboard. You can keep it in the sort of middle of the fretboard. You can, the further you go down, the bigger the distance between the frets and the more stress that it could cause your left hand. There's also a thing with this too that's important to say, because I mentioned about the wrist being straight. You can minimize this by moving this, the headstock, nearer to your head. Okay, so this is kind of an important thing when you're doing this. If I'm in a sitting position, there could be a little bit of a trade-off. But if I'm here, you can see my wrist is fairly straight. When I stand up, all I have to do is tilt this up if I'm spending a lot of time in the low register. Okay, so get your hand in the correct position, keep it in a comfortable middle position of your fretboard for now. From there, I want you to press down onto the fretboard with all 4 fingers applying pressure. Okay, then release the pressure while keeping all 4 fingers on the string. I want you just to repeat this process, feeling the pressure distributed evenly between all 4 fingers and the thumb, and then versus the release of the pressure from all 4 fingers and the thumb. And this is just a good exercise. And then come off of it. Press and come off of it. Remember, we're not squeezing, we're pressing. That's 2 distinct different things. Squeezing is like a really hard thing. That's not what we're doing. We're pressing down and then we're releasing. Pressing down. Notice when I release, I don't lift the fingers off my strings. Press and release. Press and release. Press and release. This creates a specific kind of isometric as well that can strengthen your left arm, which is very good for your playing. Now, the thing is the object of this exercise is to become aware of the physical sensitivity or the feeling of the difference between how the fingers apply pressure and then release the total pressure all at once within the same movement. This is very important when you're talking about the economy of movement principle, and really that dynamic relaxation thing that I was talking about. Now this is really an entry-level drill, or for those people that I call Swiss cheese guys who have done a little playing and they're mainly self-taught, and they've left out a lot of these things because no one was there to teach them the right way. So this is kind of a, like I said, this is in a sense a beginner's drill, but if you haven't seen it before and you've played a little and you fall into that category of that Swiss cheese guy, take a look at this because this is a very good exercise. Just about wraps up today's lesson, but before we go, let's take a look at what we've learned. At the end of today's lesson, we've learned how to adopt a strong left-hand stance. We've also learned the importance of economy of motion and energy as applied to our bass playing. We then learned to understand how all of the fingers of the left hand can be trained to act as one interdependent unit. As always, practice smart, work hard, and play creatively. Now, if you enjoyed today's lesson, please hit the like button below, and also feel free to leave your comments. Be sure to visit my website, www.joehubbardbassvideos.com, for a further and more in-depth look at becoming an improvising bassist. Thank you, good luck, and I hope to see you on the other side.